Hey everyone, it's Death Mammal, and today I'm going to be doing a short presentation on why to do NoFap, um, kind of comparing it with a little bit of scientific information and my own personal experience. Feel free to ask questions. I'll try to get them as I go through, but you can also ask at the very end. So to start with, I want to compare it to in the wild. The most common cause or reason why we have these interactions is for reproduction. However, and I'll go ahead and quote it, it has been observed that animals will also choose to be intimate as a means of bonding, affection, social interaction, mentoring partnerships, remediation of conflict, and even as an exchange of materials. Another interesting fact, according to the University of Oslo, homosexuality has been observed among 1,500 species, and of that, 500 of those are well documented. They compare from mammals to crabs and worms, and they're assuming, of course, that the number is probably much higher. In that sense, it is actually more natural to be gay than it is to fap. There are way more animals that practice homosexuality than there are animals that fap, if you will. It's more common within specific groups of species, but very few animals further still need this. Usually it's animals that deal with being in heat and will fall ill. It's not something that they need to do, it's just more something that, like us, they just want to do. Another study that was done with fruit bats, they observed that when fruit bat partners tend to stay together and are both involved in the raising of their young, those species tend to have larger brains, but smaller nuggets relative to other fruit bat species that are not involved and they just kind of procreate willingly with as many partners as possible. It's similar to what's called K and H species. K species are like elephants, larger mammals, species that don't produce a lot of children. They have more intelligence and typically have to spend a lot more time and resources into raising their young. Meanwhile, H species, like fruit flies is a common example. Animals that have a lot of children, some reptiles do this, they don't spend a lot of time with their rearing of offspring. I think it's obvious where humans genuinely lie is on that K spectrum or H spectrum, K spectrum. So now looking at humans, there are 30 active parts that are involved when we go through that process, according to MRI scans that have been utilized during the interaction. It includes the amygdala, which is involved in memory and emotions. It's also involved in stress and developing relationships. The hypothalamus, which is pretty obvious. It even controls things like heart rate and body temperature. Anterior cingulate cortex, impulse control and empathy, surprisingly, and the nucleus accumbens, which is attributed to the feelings of euphoria. And that's a lot of stuff to be, kind of messing with on your own free time. There's a lot of other hormones involved. Oxytocin is released and it causes a sense of trust and makes us miss or have feelings for our partners. However, the same study that listed all this information mentioned that for people who have high levels of testosterone, they won't feel as much of a connection. And that has to do with the way it suppresses the oxytocin's activity. So when you look at the argument that it's natural, not all animals have the same biological factors that we have when it comes to doing the deed, if you will. Humans, however, we have a wide range of chemicals. We're meant to be raising offspring together. It's not an activity that we really need to have. No one's going to get sick and die from it. It's more of just a way to pass the time. It's not natural. It's just something that you're capable of doing because you have hands. And it's still not reality. Although it's arguably better than using porn or external contents, you're still trying to use your imagination, and the difference is there's not an actual person. You're imagining an actual person. Even with your best intentions and trying to come up with something wholesome, it's still a way of entertaining yourself. It's not, at the end of the day, the argument really isn't about you and your own health. It's you're dealing with an urge, and it just feels like the thing that you want to do. And in my experience, after 96 days of NoFap, now I've been porn-free for a long time, so I feel like I can speak from experience on just doing the NoFap. I feel like my head is in the right place. I'm not wasting any part of my time physically or mentally with the things that never really benefited me in the first place. I'm not dealing with random urges all the time, which is the reason that I had ever been fapping in the first place, right? Sure, there's an element of boredom, or it seems like something to do, or I am like escaping duties or trying to put them off, but I'm not wrestling with those same problems anymore, and I am more present in my relationship. Not from quitting porn, but just from quitting masturbation as a whole. And even in those interactions, even my partner would agree that it hits different. Those feelings after being together, it stays. And I was talking with somebody else in the server about what it's like to hit around 90 days and that it is a reset. And I didn't know that 90 days around that time was a reset. I didn't know it was a thing that people talk about, but that's something I've genuinely been experiencing, and it's wild. I wish I could have everyone just try to hold off for 90 days and see how you feel. I feel like my entire life I had been missing out on what sex is supposed to be because I've never not masturbated. I never knew that it could have been as good as it actually is. But that's my own experience. I feel like everybody should be able to follow their own journey, make their own decisions about their experiences, and kind of come to what conclusion works best for them. I think we can all agree, based on the number of studies and the magnitude of the data, that porn is harmful. So whether you choose to do the whole 9 with NoFap, I think is a personal choice, but I think that there is evidence that it's never something necessary. This is just something that you're choosing to do with your time that if you didn't interact with, at least for me, you're going to have a lot more free time and a lot more energy to be the kind of productive person that you want to be. And that's the end of my very short presentation that I promised it would be. Questions, thoughts, comments?